So, to me, creativity has always felt like a state of being, a way of showing up for yourself, and trying to make sense of the world around you and your own feelings and place in it, either by leaving a mark or by capturing a moment, through a photograph or a video or a sketch. And I feel like a lot of people believe that creativity is only meant for a certain kind of person, and that you need to, again, be some kind of eccentric artist type, who fits into a certain stereotype to be able to be creative. But I think for me, at a personal level and through Alipore Post, the belief has always been that we need to democratize creativity. I try and do that through zines, which are a really easy way of getting an idea down in like a tiny A4 size 8-page format. It could also be to just acknowledge that, say, when you're in a concert and you're feeling the rhythm and you feel your feet tapping to the music, that itself is also being creative. You're tapping into the dhun of the music. You're feeling sound. I also feel like expression is one side of creativity, but even just living a creative life, or going on a walk and listening to the sound of different bird calls, or noticing patterns on a leaf that you find fascinating, and then going and trying to find out the name of it. All of that is creativity that we do come across on a day-to-day basis. And I feel like people really do need to explore that. We all could do with a vent, or basically getting down a lot of that burden that's going on in our mind into some kind of condensed form, be it a poem or a painting or a piece of music or spoken word or anything, literally. But basically creating an outlet for yourself to be able to, yeah, just, I guess, find yourself in the process of doing and being and seeing the world around you through a certain lens.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I'm your host Sangeeta, aka the Moody Marshmallow. You just heard our guest for today, Rohini Kejriwal. Rohini is an independent writer, poet, and artist based out of Bangalore, India. She is the founder of the Alipore Post, a weekly newsletter on art, poetry, and creativity. You can find her work in publications like Scroll, First Post, The Quint, and others. In this episode, we chat about her journey with the Alipore Post, some cool projects she's been working on, her creative process, mental health, and more. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Closet Writer Chronicles. I have a very special guest with me on today's episode. I have with me Rohini Kejriwal, better known as the founder of the Alipore Post, who brings the most amazing newsletters every week. And she's been doing this for the past 7 years at this point. So thank you so much for being here, Rohini. It's so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Sangeeta. It's nice to also have a connection with you after our interactions on Instagram DMs. It's it's been really exciting to see your podcast grow and to be following your work as well. So excited to speak to you today.
Thank you so much. So, just to kind of quickly dive in, the first thing I want to ask you is what is your earliest memory of being creative?
Okay. I actually like I don't remember being the most visually creative kid. Um, I used to jot down poems more than doodles. I know a lot of kids have grown up just drawing in their margins, but I unfortunately had art teachers who made me feel like I didn't draw the perfect apple, and I don't know, it was just like a very dismissive attitude towards creativity. But I think my first memory of actually feeling drawn to expression, I think more than even creativity, was when I first encountered limericks. Okay. I think that was like a game changer for me, knowing that you could play around with um, the structure. Like it's just a 5 line poem, and people like poets like Spike Milligan and Edward Lear kind of opened these doors for me. And it was just really nice to be silly with those kind of limericks. And yeah, I think after that, when I started attending boarding school in Rishi Valley, that was like another, I think, in my teens, a slightly more formative time, because I had an incredible English teacher who's also a poet himself. And I think that was the first time where he encouraged uh, just raw poetry, like free verse, and breaking out of the rules that were set. In school, we also had a very open uh, art culture. So every year you could experiment. So I've done batik, I've done murals, I've done woodcraft and pottery, but it was all kind of, uh, I think that was like the starting point for me to see art as a democratized form of expression.
No, but that's amazing, honestly. And the fact that you got to kind of try so many different things, right? And kind of experience creativity in different ways, which I think is really nice. So then, having said that, how did you start the Alipore Post then? Because that's kind of like, I would imagine, is like a culmination of a lot of things you have clearly creatively enjoyed. And I think that really reflects in the newsletters you put out every week, because it's such a mishmash of these like wonderful little trinkets from the internet, as I like to put it, um, which is so amazing. So, how did it all start? And, what has the journey been like from, the very beginning till now?
It's actually funny that you say trinkets of the internet, because to me, I think the newsletter is like a love letter to the internet. Um,
Oh.
I think so it started as an idea in 2015. Um, I don't think there were too many newsletters in India at the time. I was personally only subscribed to one called Oddity and Light, and this was a poetry newsletter that was started by a school senior of mine. Her name's Raisa Vakil, and uh, I don't even remember like who put me on that list, but I'm just so grateful that they did, because it opened me up to this whole world of contemporary poets. I don't think I knew anything beyond like H.W. Longfellow or Sarojni Naidu or Tennyson before that. Like it was all very school curriculum centered. Right. But just, I don't know, seeing the kind of universality in the poems that she was sharing. She used to write like a line about why she liked each of those poems, and that really drew me in. And then at some point, she was inviting people to take over. So for a week, I got a chance to curate poems for the readers. And I think, wow. Yeah, I think that was like the moment when I realized that I want to do something like this. Um, because I was enjoying Tumblr at the time a lot. Just Okay, yeah, it was like a Tumblr era, and Instagram wasn't such a big thing. I think people were still on Facebook at the time. So, and I was in Calcutta, which is where Alipur comes from. Like Alipur is home for me. That's the area I stay in. And I like the post is just generally like the sense of somebody writing a letter to you or a note to you, like a very personalized form of communication. Uh,
Uh huh.
and yeah, I think I was just going through some like a rough phase back then personally, and the internet was kind of offering these gems. I think what Oddity and Light, what Tumblr, what my general curiosity at the time, like I was straight out of college. I had worked for 2 years in Deccan Herald and kind of just been exposed to art, culture, music, and started
Mm-hmm.
forming my opinions about what I like and what I don't. Um, I was drawn to illustration and just bright colors. And I was already like collecting a lot of these links. So initially, when I first actually sent out the newsletter, it was just a Gmail, like just a literal email with an image attached, a poem that does not correspond to the artwork like it does right now. I think like it was
Okay.
like one link it was one link and maybe like one song recommendation. And this was actually a daily newsletter back then. So for the first 3 years, it was a daily endeavor to put together whatever I was reading and kind of just, it was like these outbursts that were happening. And there was no sense of community or, okay, I'm building a newsletter. It was literally just, okay, I'm putting up a Facebook status saying, whoever wants me to spam you with things I'm finding, please share your email ID and I'm going to just send you stuff. So it was a really, I don't know, the newsletter culture has certainly changed today, and now everybody seems
Yeah.
to have a newsletter, which is also cool. But back then, the drive wasn't to, like tell my story or any of that. I think it was just like a place to archive my findings and
Mm-hmm.
curiosities, and just create a space for them. And then so there was like a faux pas on my part where instead of BCCing everyone, I CC'd them. You know how they used to be those like chain threads that kept happening and everybody was replying to all. So that happened, and like for a whole day, people from different parts of India, someone from Berlin, someone from New York, they were just kind of like saying hello to each other through that one
Oh, wow.
email. And a lot of people this like they wanted to hang out with fellow readers of the Alipore Post. So my solution to stop that was basically, let me start a Facebook page and then all of you can converge there and get to know each other basically. The fact that I realized that there's a community in 2016 and 2017, like just a year into it, I also wanted to kind of create an offline experience. I had also moved to Bangalore by then, and just kind of rediscovering what the city has to offer and realizing that there's a lot of gap in terms of actual, like, genuine engagement between people,
Uh-huh.
between like minded people. So I did
Mm-hmm.
about three different editions of these Alipur Post offlines, which to me felt like mini festivals where there's like poetry readings happening, there's a garden where you can just sit and draw, there's plants, there's games everywhere, there's music, and basically like how I would imagine an Alipur Post to manifest in a physical space, to try and kind of
Mm-hmm.
hold space for that. At some point, I also got too tired of doing the daily newsletters. So that also shifted and just became a weekly one. And I think over time, even things like the platforms changing, it was all happening very organically. Like
Mm-hmm.
Gmail only allowed you to have 500 subscribers. So I switched to Tiny Letter, which seemed like the easiest newsletter platform at the time. And then
Right.
about a year ago, they actually didn't send out a newsletter of mine, which I had pressed send on. And I got very upset and I decided to boycott them and move to Substack, which I think has just been
Okay.
a great decision because I don't know, it's really intuitive and I don't know, my brain really works well with Substack. Just the dropping of images, the kind of formatting it allows,
Mm-hmm.
it lends to a very, for me at least, a personal lens to tell my story from. Um,
Hmm.
and I think another shift that happened over the years with the newsletter was also me kind of bringing myself in. I think initially it was so random, and when I started looking for the right image with the art, with the right words, when I
Mm-hmm.
started uh, kind of like pouring out whatever I was going through into those newsletters, it just became a lot more of a personal space for me to express myself, to make sense of life in general, and to talk about things
Uh-huh.
which I feel are not being spoken of, like just even why it's important to have play coming into your creative practice, for example. And that's again something that, or mental health. And these are just things I've learned and kind of been dwelling on. And the newsletter becomes a space to basically process all of that. Instagram
Uh-huh.
is its own community, but for me, that's just a lot harder to engage on a regular basis. And I think Instagram is the part which really overwhelms me, but the
Mm-hmm.
newsletter is the intended format. And yeah, I hope to keep
Yeah.
doing this. I mean, at least the newsletter bit for as long as I can.
Yeah, I hope so too, because I think you're doing an amazing job with the newsletters, and just the kind of content you bring out with those newsletters is just like I look forward to them every week at this point. It's like, oh, this week's edition has come out. Let's check what's there.
No, it's also funny. Like when I realized that when I started putting myself into the newsletter a lot more, two things happened. Like I think it distinguished me from the other newsletters that were coming in, which were also just featuring poetry, art, links, in a very similar format. And
Mm-hmm.
I think people started relating more to the person behind Alipore Post. A lot of people have always felt like it's an organization or it's a group of people, but uh, it's just me being vulnerable. And a lot of people have actually like written in saying, hey, like you've been sharing a lot of sad poems of late, are you doing okay? Or I haven't got the newsletter this week, what's up? Like, are you going through something, can I help? And I think that's just really special because that's this unexpected perk or whatever, like a layer of having done this for so long, that not only have I
Mm-hmm.
found my own voice, but um, I guess it's like a person behind the newsletter that people can also kind of relate to, which is interesting.
Yeah, of course. And I think the reason the newsletter works so well is because there is a lot of authenticity. You can make that out when you read it. And I think that's definitely one of the bigger reasons as to why the newsletters worked so well and it's really sustained for so long. Having said that, it's not easy also to kind of do this every single week. And even when you go through each newsletter, there is a significant amount of content in each letter that you do send out. And it really got me thinking, how do you find the time to just pull so much together to organize, plan, and really execute these newsletters? Because hey, I started a monthly newsletter during the pandemic and I struggled and I've been on hiatus for a couple of months. So I have no idea how you do it. And I, for one, would really love to know how you kind of, plan your newsletters. Do you have a specific routine or process? Is it very, organic, intuitive? Like, and how do you select pieces? Because you show a lot of like, there's so much diversity as well. So, how do you go about that?
Um, this might be a little long and convoluted.
That's fine.
Yeah. So initially, when I started, even just collecting images from the internet, I never realized, like, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think back then we were that aware about, like crediting the right artist and um, maybe just, for me, like, I just remember all my JPEGs that were saved in that Tumblr phase were just like Tumblr dot something something something, and then no artist name basically. But then when I realized that
Okay.
I want to, like basically, I got more visually curious. I started going through entire like bodies of works of different artists. I think the internet is kind of funny in this way that it now it's the algorithm and AI that's doing it, but once you
Mm-hmm.
find the places that feel like home, to me it kind of feels like I'm entering a gallery or a room and then kind of just like walking around, seeing what's fitting the mood that I'm feeling, the poems that I've selected. um, and basically I have two folders. One is tap unused and tap used, so it's
Okay.
not very organized even within that. I need to have like big thumbnails to just go through those, and I've started going through a lot of the public domain archives for the art.
Mm-hmm.
Or because I also run the Alipore Post as a journal, and there is a lot of like crowdsourced poetry, art, photography coming in. There's a balance of basically like things I've curated and things that people have shared. So that's the images. Um, with the general theme, I think again, like I said before, it became a weekly edition. It was just a very sporadic, organic kind of like just finding something nice and deciding to share it. With the weekly
Okay.
editions, I think my mind has started categorizing them into certain larger themes. What I've started doing with Substack now, because again, like as a format, the way you can draft things there. Earlier, a lot of my drafting used to happen on Gmail itself. Um,
Okay.
and basically, like any poem that I like from anywhere, I just keep it in my Gmail. And then when I'm moving it to Substack, now I've kind of got a sense of themes I'd like to explore. So I've got it open right now. I'm just going to read out some. There's coffee, there's tender love poems, there's concrete poetry, there's the addiction issue, there's garden poems, and then there's also stuff for like September, December, and things already here because
Oh,
maybe
wow.
I can use them. I don't know. So interesting for me to see how Alipur Post as a mindset works for me versus other projects. So, for example, I've started this new page called Hoovu Finds, and that's a page which is all about like flowers and creativity. And
Uh-huh.
for that, it's a completely different approach than what I do with Alipur Post. With that, there's like a scheduling app later that I'm using. All the posts are kind of planned week by week in a Google Doc, and then I'm exporting it. I have
Mm-hmm.
separate image folders marked by the date. None of that happens for Alipur Post. I think it's literally just like what is unused, and once it's used, put it in the used column. But I think that's what works with the Alipur Post as a format versus these other projects that I take on. The fact that it's coming to me, like most of
Right.
the curation and things happen on Mondays. I kind of maybe find things over the course of the week, month, and just keep saving them somewhere. Um, but that kind of sense making and putting it together, maybe in a coherent way or not, all of that happens mostly on Mondays. But like you said, like I think I've also become someone who doesn't like feel obliged to send it. Yes, it's a weekly newsletter, but I am a human being at the end of the day. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not getting help. And uh, if inspiration doesn't strike, I'm not going to just put out something for the sake of it. And I think that kind of creative liberty and just this sense of voice and
how I want to show up for myself as the Alipore Post has evolved over time. There's just because it's so much of a like it's such an extension of who I am as a person that's kind of coming in. It's a very easy process for me. Like I'm not someone who gets bored very easily. Okay. I think just because I'm curious and I've kind of sorted out a large chunk of the internet that I like between Feegly and Tumblr. Okay. And Instagram, I guess. Like Instagram now, it's like I follow way too many artists because I'm just like, oh my god, this is so good, and I want to see everything you do. But between I think like mostly Feedly and Tumblr, and also my inbox, I get like the sources that I'm getting my content from are kind of all there. But okay, it could be like what I usually do is like if I come across a new journal, I don't know on what basis that clicking one link going into the other and kind of just going into that hole that is the internet, how that happens. But it's like a fun journey for me. It's like a lot of meandering and almost like I'm going on a walk, but in this virtual space.
No, but that's amazing that you've kind of found a process for yourself that works, and it's working very well, I have to say.
No, I think it's just taken time to arrive at this because um, I think even just at a personal level, and uh, I know we're going to talk about mental health later, but just even something as simple as Notion as a tool to um, basically like track think future links that I want to read, putting down like tasks at a very broken down level of okay, today you have to look for maybe like go poem hunting today, or work on this other newsletter that you've been toying with in your mind and like actually give it a form today. Basically like it's become a space where these ideas uh, can be seen visually by me. I think before that all of it was happening in my mind, and there was just a lot of churning and messiness in that process, but okay, it's become a lot more streamlined now, I think.
Yeah, no, that's and yeah, that obviously really helps to have a kind of some sense of system, like a method to the madness, as they say. But then I wonder, like in your case, because you've been doing this, for so long, and you've built a community that's, I think, been growing really strong for the past 7 years. Have you ever come across a phase where you felt, say, pressured to deliver and, like, say, not disappoint? Because I would imagine then there is a certain level of expectation people keep from the newsletter, right? Have you ever faced that where you're like, oh my god, like, I need to live up to people's expectations with this newsletter?
Not really. Like, I'm very happy to go on breaks. I also don't feel like I'm answerable to anybody. I am doing it for myself. So even like last week, I was traveling, I was busy, I had too many deadlines at the end of July. So it just didn't happen. And usually I would like maybe put up an Instagram story saying, okay, it's not happening this week, but like I'll show up next week in your inbox. Here I don't know. It's also I have a very different connection relationship with my inbox at the moment. I think at this point, this is like the most number of emails, but I have some 5,000 emails which are unread right now, and I'm wow, actually indifferent. Like, I think that is where I used to feel the pressure that okay, I've not replied to someone for the last 6 months or 10 months even, and there's that guilt which keeps building up. But I think listening to enough podcasts with freelancers and newsletter creators, reading articles and things with people sharing the same problem, and realizing that inbox zero or replying to everybody on time because you feel obliged to do that, I don't want to have those expectations from myself as a person. I would love for it to, um, be inbox zero for me to actually have a better sense of time management, life management, to not take on too many things. Because other than Alipur Post, I do have like other work that I do.
Yeah, of course.
But even Instagram, like I like going on my little breaks from Instagram just to, I don't know, maybe also give people a chance to miss it a little bit. Though that is not the intention. For me, it's, my need for a break. But I don't feel that pressure. And say something like, this is my newsletter, which you also contributed to. So when I started This Is My Newsletter, the idea, that was a pandemic newsletter. And for me, the
Mm-hmm.
idea was that I love working on newsletters. I love the process of creating, writing, curating, and kind of putting it all together in this cohesive mail that arrives in someone's inbox and hopefully adds value or beauty or just a smile on people's face. There is that very human connection that's happening with newsletters as a format. And I wanted
Mm-hmm.
more people to just try it out. So, This Is My Newsletter just started
Yeah.
off being, um, me asking friends, family members, people who've just inspired me and who've been like internet friends who have admired the journey of, to do a newsletter. And it was just a
Mm-hmm.
one off newsletter that was going out from them. But with that, when I was reaching the end of it, like I started it in August 2020, and I think in July 2021, instead of thinking of like, okay, who should the 53rd person be and making this like a long term thing, I said, okay, I think I'm done. Like, I think 52 newsletters in over the course of a year is a lot. And if
Yeah.
anyone is genuinely interested, they have the entire archive to sit and go through and discover 52 amazing people. Um, so, a lot of these things kind of dictate their, like end point. I don't have to steer it. um, I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
reasons why I've also sustained Alipur Post as a, at a personal interest level is because of that. Like there is a sense of detachment. I'm not sitting and thinking about poetry 24/7. It's, um I guess, like the way people are consuming things on Instagram. For me, it's a little more intentional way of uh, consuming the content that I'm creating, and then putting together the things that I feel, people might relate to or resonate, or that I want to put down together. And another
Mm-hmm.
initiative that I had started in the pandemic, Chitti Exchange, um,
Yeah.
that was a pen pal project. I've always wanted to do it, because I love letter writing, and at boarding school, that was the one way to just stay in touch with people back home.
Mm-hmm.
So I got really fond of that medium, and I wanted people to experience it. I think pandemic and the general state of loneliness and, um, inability to connect and like Zoom fatigue, all of that was building up, and I decided to just keep this, again, very organic approach to starting this project. I created a Google form. There were a bunch of questions that people answered, and then I did the pairing manually myself and emailed each person,
Wow.
to say, okay, now this is your new pen pal. I hope you all become like maybe best friends for life or not, and that's okay. But at least you'll get to experience that joy of writing a letter and receiving one. But even with that, like there
Uh-huh.
was no timeline that I had kept in mind. Um, I kept going on hiatuses. Is that a basically, like I've done about 10, like the 10th round is ongoing now, but it started off as a monthly thing, then it became quarterly, and then now it's basically like every 6 months, because people are writing in to say, hey, like, can you please open up, we really would like a pen pal. I'm doing it. So that is the only place where there's like a little bit of pressure that I feel, where it's not even pressure, it's like I want to keep it going, but I wish that there was
Right.
a more sustainable way of doing this on a regular basis, because it takes up a good 5 6 days of my time. Like, and you have people who don't write to their pen pal, who just sign up and then never actually do what they signed up for. And that's a really unfortunate
Oh,
experience, because I'm all about, like, okay, trust the community, this is a safe space we're creating. um, Luckily there have been no bad incidents or repercussions, like um, privacy breaches or things, but uh,
okay.
there's a lot of faith with which these things are done. So yeah, okay, I don't know. I know you're asking about the timelines and how I manage these, but
Yeah, no, no, but it's really incredible to see you do so many initiatives, right? Be it with This Is My Newsletter, Hoovu Finds, which is your most recent endeavor. There's even Dear Jasmine, which you just recently started, which I think again is a really cool concept. But then, there's so many projects happening, and of course, the Alipore Post is where everything kind of really started and binds all this together. Have you ever faced creative burnout? Because I feel like, doesn't a lot of this also just demand quite a bit of your creative energy, and right, to keep creating and keep coming up with, say, um, something new or something that will really resonate? And obviously, even when you're creating, a lot of times it's also about, is it satisfying you as a creator? Because obviously only if it really satisfies you, it's really reaches out also to your audience a lot of the time. So, what is your take on creative burnout? Have you experienced it? And, what do you do to cope with it, or, recover from it?
oh, sure. I actually have in the past, especially experienced a lot of it. Um, I think creative burnout is also part of the process. And, when you're reaching it, you start realizing that you need to have a healthier balance of work and play, and just, more time to yourself. I think, like, the creative satisfaction part is not the problem for me. I guess it's um, so. For example, years ago, I've done a lot of these, like, 365-day projects,
Mm-hmm.
where you don't really have the time to sit and judge yourself. You just want to consistently write, or in the case of things like Inktober or National Poetry Month, which are like 30-day challenges. You just want to
Yeah.
create. Like, it's just the idea that there is a community who's doing this along with you. So there's just a little more
Mm-hmm.
motivation. But even with my art, like, I also have a page, Raw Doodles, but it's only coming from a place of play. Like, I don't think I take things too seriously in general. Like, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I know a lot of people who would think like a gazillion times before they put out something that they're really happy with. For me, maybe that
Mm.
level where I'm content comes a little faster than others. Um, I also, like, I struggle with memory a little bit, and because
Okay.
it's not, it's basically like me just living in the moment. So um, I guess there's like a little bit less accountability towards it being like this perfect thing. So
Mm-hmm.
even with, say, Hoovu Finds, within 3 weeks of actually saying, okay, let's do this, I was just like, okay, cool. Like, I think we're ready to launch. Like, I don't want to overthink things. I think that's why the um, the rawness comes through, and for me, that's
Mm-hmm.
a very endearing quality, because it just makes it more real. It makes it more human. Um, I guess
Uh-huh.
I've also been doing this for so long that it doesn't actually feel like work. Like, I'm really grateful that at this point I don't have a full time job, and I can kind of just spend my days d- dreaming, writing, drawing, coming up with collaborations. Even something like Dear Jasmine, which is a non-advice column, was started by me just because somebody wrote in saying, "Hey, I've been thinking about this idea for a while, and would you like to explore this with me? Like, do you feel like you have the space on Alipur Post to uh, share this? And I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know what it is about collaborations, what it is about these, these raw ideas that seem to be brimming with potential. That I was just like, okay, you
Mm-hmm.
please like go ahead and start. And we got some 70, 80 questions in the beginning, and now it's basically like a fortnightly newsletter that comes apart from the weekly newsletters I send out. um,
Uh-huh.
and that itself, like, it has its own voice, it has its own life. The only participation where I'm coming in is actually like formatting it on the back end and finding the artwork for it. But otherwise it's also
Mm-hmm.
nice to kind of like give the reins to someone else. I've not been very good with actually like delegating work. So even in these Alipur Post offline events, everyone like saw me just being in point A, point B, point Z, like in a span of 5 minutes. Like, I wish I was better at um, I guess people management, or um, trusting volunteers and things like that. But
Right.
it's also just friends who've been incredibly supportive and also just inspiring. Like, I think one of the
Mm-hmm.
best things that's happened for me, I because I've been interviewing creative people since I think 2010 or so. I
Mm-hmm.
just see them as human beings. Like, I literally just want to talk and know the story and know about the process and why they do what they do, versus it being this daunting conversation that a lot of people might like. I think even say doing something like this with a podcast, it's not the most familiar territory for me. I'm also quite introvertish, so I'm pleasantly surprised that there is like a flow of thought that's happening even in a format like this. But I think by and large, I'm just a curious person who's happy to keep exploring. And I think that's led me to a lot of these places. Like, uh, I've been the vessel. Like, I mean, ideas are flowing through me, sure, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of like just tapping into the universe and grabbing it, as Elizabeth Gilbert says. The ideas are out there for everyone, and if you don't take it on, someone else will. Um,
Right.
so there's also, like, I guess that sense of urgency, or I have a very distorted relationship with time as well. Like, there's just a lot of time
Mm.
blindness. So um, half the times I even forget the initiatives I've started. Like, I forgot that I run Alipur Post Poetry Month every April and Inktober in October. But I think what's going to really help me, and I hope to do this year, is to actually have a better website for Alipur Post. Even for me to just kind of chart out the kind of different things that have happened.
Mm-hmm.
I think at a personal level, something that happened because I started collaborating with like-minded organizations and brands was that I started taking on this art director kind of role. Like, I've always enjoyed writing and editing, but um, because I'm now so invested and closely working with the artist community in India, for example, or the poetry community in India, I kind of just know whose work I want to highlight in a particular context. Um, so
Hmm.
there's just a lot of intuition at play also. But in terms of coping with burnout, I think it's just me time that helps, away from the screen,
Mm-hmm.
taking decisions. Like, I don't care if my inbox overflows, and I don't care if like people are upset with me for not reverting. Like, right now, my website uh, hasn't been updated, I think, since May or June. I don't know. And that's okay. Like, I'm not running it the way others are running their journals. My submission
Mm.
period also, whenever I do put out any kind of open call, I immediately get like 500 submissions, and I, I don't know, I can't deal with that volume as like one person. So most of
Mm.
the times I'm just like, okay, I'm going to avoid this right now because I literally don't have the bandwidth or time or inclination to do it. So um yeah, I think it's just easier when things flow at a more
Mm-hmm.
natural pace and time. And I don't have to feel like I'm chasing a deadline.
Okay.
Yeah, it also helps to
Yeah.
not have a boss.
No, but it's no, that's really interesting to hear. And that's also really refreshing that, as much as possible, you really don't try to take the pressure, right? Um, which can be helpful. But then, I'm curious because, like, since even you mentioned that you have been kind of doing quite a few brand collaborations as well in the recent past, be it with, say, Mubi or Niyogi books or Nevala and a lot of other brands. But then, like, how do you manage those kind of collaborations where I assume they obviously do kind of have a sort of specific target or timeline they might want to do things in. So then how do you kind of deal with those projects or collaborations?
So again, with that, Notion has been, I think, my savior. I don't even remember how I used to do it before Notion. It's like my life is pre Notion and post Notion. But now, for example, if I have to do specific posts, it goes on to Notion. I use Buffer for at least these kind of collaboration related posts,
Mm-hmm.
just so that I don't forget those. And I think because it's not like such a frequent thing, that does stay at the back of my mind. So it might be like one collaboration in 2 months or something, or if it's going in a newsletter, for example, I can just mark that in Substack itself. Um,
Okay.
and yeah, even that has a bit of a system at play. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
but it's kind of interesting to see how those kind of collaborations work because uh, I don't like the idea of competition in the creative space. I mean, I think there's enough
Okay.
space for everybody to do their thing and do it how they would like without having to compromise. And when it comes to collaborations, it's just cool to create like a new vision for it. So even with,
Mm-hmm.
say, Hoovu Finds, um, I actually like met them to do a zine with them, where I would be creating the zine. But the conversation and the kind of ideas that I went with made them realize that you can just go do an Alipore post on flowers and we can create a community around that. So say something like that is now the only full time job kind of thing I have going on. And it's
Mm.
amazing because it's like a dream job for me to be curating flower related content. I'm creating zines with people. I'm starting a newsletter with them for that, which is only going to be a monthly one because I don't have the scope beyond that. And again, like some of that does eat into the, either my personal time or other projects, but I
Mm-hmm.
try and stay on top of things. I think just I'm not even someone who like sits at the desk too much. But my laptop and phone are pretty much where all the work happens. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
it is happening on the go. A lot of it is just like mulling over things and daydreaming and letting things flow. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's amazing, and that's really cool to hear also, right? Because everyone has their own process with it, and I think in a world that's so, like, I feel like even the creative space has, for better or worse, has become a space where everyone's encouraging the hustle culture there also. So it's just nice to see someone taking it, kind of easy and being like, hey, let's encourage play here. Let's not. Go overboard with it, which I think is really nice.
Yeah. And I think
Um,
it's a gentle kind of hustle, at least for me as a person.
yeah.
It can't be like commercials driven and uh, I don't know, it has to feel very organic and natural, and like holding space together with whoever that collaborator is. And
Yeah.
I've been very lucky again to have met those kind of people in my own life, like people who've become friends, and professionally as well.
No, for sure. Because, like the next question which I am getting to is, about social media. Because, as I said, since the creative space is again becoming a sort of hustle culture kind of place, social media is one of the bigger aspects of that. Especially for writers and artists in today's day and age, it is tough to make it because social media can do a lot for you, but at the same time, the platforms are evolving so rapidly that it's really tough to keep up. And it's come to a point where people, for the sake of getting that exposure and doing well, unfortunately compromise on the quality of their content. Are there any, rules or tips that you follow or have been following? Because I mean, Rohini, you've managed to like build a really impressive community, and the fact is, I don't think you've ever compromised on, the quality and the kind of content you put out, which I think is really commendable today, especially.
I kind of hate social media. Like, I really feel sad that people think that Alipur Post is this Instagram page. Um, it's not. Like, the soul of it is the newsletter.
Yeah.
And I I don't know. I feel like I mean, I currently really hate Instagram because it's gone that full TikTok route, and
Yeah.
um, a lot of people who have actually admired, I'm now seeing them do these weird lip sync videos, and I don't know, like I just I'm judging and unfollowing people very rapidly. So I think that would be the only tip, like to really check in on who you're following and what you want to take from the platform, because it's also been the platform that's helped me grow into whatever shape and form the Alipur Post has right now as a community. Um,
Hmm.
but something like, say, if I'm doing rain poems on the newsletter, I have to break up each of those poems into like um, five different posts with different images, or go to Canva and put them in a certain way and then put it. So all of that is like an extra hassle, and I really dislike social media for that. Even on
Hmm.
something like Later, which is that scheduling app, you have to
Yeah.
go and like do it individually based on character length and image ratio size and all that, and it's like a pain. I don't know why people need things on so many platforms. But I think when it comes to actually posting, especially for writers and artists,
Hmm.
maybe a little detachment helps. Like I'm not sitting on Instagram all day long, reposting stories or things. It might just be a going through my feed, and if there's something really exciting worth sharing, I can repost it. But I don't end up doing a lot of my reading there on the platform. For me, I need my laptop. I need um, Google, so that if I find an artist or writer that I like, I can go read more of their work. I can dig into their archives and um, kind of see why, like, again, make sense of what I'm liking about it. I feel like
Hmm.
it's all very homogenized on social media. Everybody's got that same aesthetic where you have an image and then
Yeah.
you've overlaid the poem text over it. The visuals are all, it's all too similar, and I feel like again, I don't know if it's the algorithm's problem, or is everyone else kind of pandering to this.
Right.
But I don't know. I'm waiting to see like a healthier approach, definitely with when it comes to social media. I've seen so many people's mental health go to the dumps because of it. Whether it's not getting the validation you want, or um, I don't know, just not growing at the pace you thought you would, and feeling
Hmm.
like that is saying something about who you are as a person or an artist or a writer. And that's really sad
Hmm.
because I feel like that sense of joy and exploration and play should be the driving force. So for me, even
Yeah.
when it comes to like, I think for me, the freest space is row doodles because I literally just draw, have fun with it, and then um, like export it from Procreate to my phone and then just post it, and then I'm done. Like, the other thing is that, say, even if I have like 70,000 people who are following it, the engagement and things like the rules of engagement are not dependent on me. With the
Hmm.
Substack, I at least get to chart my growth. I know that there are like, if there are 7,000 subscribers, I can see that um, they have come here and they are here to stay. Whereas
Right.
Instagram, it's a very hit or miss culture. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm a friend recently told me about a new platform called Arena, which is
Oh,
a much nicer visual platform. So I feel like I'm gonna go and try that, and kind of steer clear of other things. Like for me now, it's only Instagram. I don't bother with Facebook, Twitter. I don't have the energy to keep up with those. And I think everyone's just generally like shouting and like vying for attention on all these platforms. So I just hope people find that sense of balance and authenticity going forward.
yeah. No, I completely agree. It's become like this mad dash or race. Like it's just ridiculous. It feels like everyone's a headless chicken on social media today, honestly speaking. Shifting gears a bit, I want to talk about mental health, but I especially want to talk about ADHD, since you've spoken about living with it on other platforms. And the reason I'd like you to talk about it is because there just isn't enough conversation today on subjects like this, and there's not enough awareness. And it's always really insightful and helpful to hear from someone who is um, living with certain I don't want to say conditions, but living with certain things and kind of going through certain experiences, because it just kind of helps other people to really understand where they're coming from, which is why I'd love for you to talk about it.
Sure. I think it's been a very difficult journey for me to even accept it at a public level, because
Right.
there was that much stigma. There was, I think the struggle was just a lot more intense.
Hmm.
But I think uh, because I've kind of started making sense of ADHD and what it means for me to have it in my life, I've also taken it on at a personal level to start talking about it more and more. It gives me some kind of hope, and I think it's just a little empowering for me also to like get to write that narrative for myself. The
Hmm.
fact that it is a strength and it doesn't have to be seen as a weakness, and that there doesn't have to be shame around it. um, but for me, I got diagnosed last year, at the start of the pandemic. Actually, I I had this amazing therapist who came into my life last year, and within a few conversations, she was quite sure that I have ADHD. Um, and I've been through many therapists before this, and no one really picked up on it. I think there was just uh, a lot of telltale signs for me. There was just like heightened emotions and uh, a lot of reactivity, which was unnecessary. There was
Hmm.
insecurities with life, love, my own work. There was a lot of doubt, and I think just the biggest thing has been the lack of time management in my life. Like, I think I was just constantly on autopilot for God knows how many years, and getting this diagnosis has helped me really slow down, um, try and work with my shortcomings to uh, have a little more stability and balance. Like, just something like eating healthy or exercising regularly. I know that this is something a lot of people struggle with, but I think with people with ADHD just do not have that sense of accountability. So even recognizing a fact like that and seeing how strongly it's been there in my life, I'm grateful for things like that, because I still eat. Not that I still don't eat the right things. I still don't do what I'm supposed to do, but there's a little more accountability that's come in. Mhm. I have started doing like just habit trackers on Notion to see how my days and months and weeks are going. So something like me doing, I'm learning French at the moment just because I've always wanted to. And for the first time in my life, I have a 36-day streak in anything. It has, yeah, and things like that. I think people who are good with routine and who are good with just doing the right thing inherently, like just very either neurotypical or they just have their life more sorted, I guess. I I don't know. I've started seeking out. I think through the pandemic, there was a lot of me time and just a lot of time to explore what I would really like to do. So I ended up quitting my job, which wasn't satisfying me. I started therapy because I knew I needed help and certain recurring patterns had to go. I also realized that a lot of the things that at a professional level, like say taking on too much work or um, like meeting deadlines, but being overwhelmed all the time, that general state of being flustered has reduced. Okay. Also, I feel like it's like if you have any kind of injury or a fever, you don't want it to just keep weighing you down and like impacting other things in your life. So it's kind of just been about like taking a more holistic look at yourself and trying to trying to actually like be that better version of yourself. That at least for me, it's always been this projected thing in my mind, but the um, that gap between reality and that version you want to be has always been really really far. And now I can actually like I'm proud of how far I've come. It's been a hell of a struggle, but at least you start somewhere, and I mean, you arrive at a different place every day, and then you wake up and you realize that, um, over the course of, at least for me, it's been about 18 months of really like reading a lot of books, blogs, newsletters that have helped me deal with this, talking to friends who are also diagnosed with ADHD or other conditions, on how they cope. I've started using art as therapy for myself, like even say something like doodling on clouds, which is what I really enjoy doing, or drawing on flowers and leaves and things. All of this kind of started from a place of I need that light in my life. I need joy. I need play. And identifying those really small things that do it for me. I think even like say something like retail therapy, while it has its benefits, I think a lot of people are just binge watching, binge shopping. I think because of the pandemic, revenge shopping became this real thing. And when you have ADHD and you don't have self control, things just spiral out of hand very rapidly. And you have to kind of like reel back a lot to even get to that starting point. So there's been a lot of that resetting that's been happening. But yeah, I really hope that mental health can be seen in a more positive light. And I also believe that we don't have to be the perfect versions of ourselves. You could just start
Mm.
showing up at whatever level you are and acknowledge that we're all work in progress, and you do have to keep picking up the pieces and finding yourself along the way. And it's not an easy journey. So, at least for me, whenever I'm having these real and vulnerable conversations with people, especially friends, where I can see it impacting them. A lot of people I know, I have actually managed to push them to go start therapy, and I'm happy for all of us, because I just feel like we'll all be better when we start kind of facing our shadow selves and like dealing with all the pain that we've been carrying around. And it's not like just pain of whatever we've been dealing with, but like
Hmm.
just even something like intergenerational trauma,
Yeah.
or like family histories that kind of play out in these strange, difficult ways.
Yeah.
I think I'm just like a highly sensitive person, and I'm happy to have that curious lens towards myself, because now, instead of that natural response to something being like self critique or judgment about, oh no,
Hmm.
why did you do that? Now it's like, okay, you've done that. What can we do next? Like, what works for me and what doesn't work for me is now very, very clear to me. So it's like a no bullshit policy in life. And I think it's just, I'm happiest when people keep it real with me and
Yeah.
with themselves. I think we just start showing up in a more authentic way, for each other and ourselves. And I hope the world just becomes calmer,
Yeah.
more decent, if we keep showing up for ourselves and actually taking care.
Yeah, no, for sure. But more power to you, for coming out and talking about it, because I know it's never easy to talk about. I think most things in life, it's never easy to really come out and put yourself out there and talk about. But thank you so much for doing this. Um, and yeah, we're coming now to the end of this interview. And we always end with these last two questions. So, first off, what are your creative aspirations? What are you looking forward to in the near or even distant future?
Okay. I actually have a separate Notion page with good ideas, like future ideas, good ideas, just random things that have come to mind. But I want to work. So I've been toying with the idea of either starting Alipore Post as an imprint, um,
Wow.
but I don't think I have the capacity. So that's one of those conversations with myself of, are you really sure you can take this on? And I realize that the answer is no. So I think I'll just maybe work on like one book instead. I want to um, like maybe put out an anthology of the poems that I've featured in the journal. So these are voices from India that uh, people have submitted their work, and I'm just honored to give it a space. Um, it might also include art, photography. I'm not sure what that format would be like. Um, I am working on a publication actually. It's a zine like independent thing that I'm doing with an organization called Agami, which is in
Okay.
the law and justice space. And for me, that's been a very uh, new world and new conversation to enter into. But I've been doing, like, we are basically telling the stories of 10 young justice makers from India. And I've done
Okay.
the art direction on it, and basically, like, a co-conspirator in this journey. So that's something I've been working on for almost a year now, and I think it's going to be out in September, hopefully. Um,
Oh, wow. Okay.
yeah, I want to. Another idea that I've been trying to work on is a photo book on female friendships. Um, I think the pandemic has really made me realize that the friends in my life, I can totally be myself around them. It's almost like full-fledged relationships with them, in how we show up for each other, and um, just that level of openness and vulnerability. So I don't know again what that would look like, but that's a pipeline idea. Um, I want to work on a bunch of postcard books. One with my cloud doodles, one with coloring, hopefully like just pages that you can color in, by my friend Mayur Nanda, who goes by
Okay.
Copycat Design. Um, I have a very silly idea that I have, which may never manifest, is a plant sitters club. So, for example, if people are going out of town and you want someone to take care of your plants and not have them die, to actually like have a space where people can do this. But again, this is one of those I will never really do it because it involves too much work kind of books. Um, and Yeah, I want to maybe do an exhibition or two. I'm not sure what the themes would be, but I have a few ideas which have just been like growing and lingering. So hopefully something like as an actual physical, um, not even gallery experience, because I don't want it to just be about coming and buying art. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe linked to an Alipore Post offline, which I haven't done for many years now. um, and yeah, and I also want to um, I hope anyone who listens to this podcast, if you can facilitate this, it'll be great. But to have zine vending machines in India, um,
Wow.
I really want to take that on. I encountered one of these in San Francisco years ago, and my mind was just blown, that you can put in a coin and you get a zine. And another idea that I saw was how you have like napkins in the toilet, like a dispenser that you pull out to have zines like that. But basically, to make more zines myself and to produce them maybe, and
Mm.
create these kind of I guess more mass approaches to it. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if that's the right word, but basically to make it a lot more accessible to people. And last year I also got into street art a little bit, and I worked on a bunch of murals. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I hope I get to do that soon, because I've been craving that a little bit.
That's amazing. I mean, I'm like, is all of this just for this year? Is there more?
There are no timelines which are set on any of these, so it's all very um, free flowing, and when time and mind spaces align, these things are all there to consider. But I don't know what's going to actually manifest. I've become a
Yeah.
big believer in actually manifesting. Um,
Mm.
and transference, and just how energy flows and like how creativity flows. So like I said, like things just happen when they're meant to, and I'm very okay
Yeah.
with that.
No, but it's just amazing. Like I was like listening to all your ideas, and I was like, oh my god, this is cool, and this is cool, and this is really cool too. And I'm really excited just hearing all this. And I honestly can't wait to see, the stuff you come out with. But yeah, okay. So coming to our last question, what is a piece of advice or learning you'd like to share with people? It can be creative or something you've experienced in life and just wish people were more aware of.
No, I think my biggest um, learning over the years has been to incorporate play into my life and practice. I think it just becomes a lot more meaningful for me when, even if it's a serious issue that I'm dealing with, that I'm trying to process through words or a comic or an illustration, when it just comes from that very natural, instinctive voice versus trying to force it, and to kind of keep having a lot of iterations when it comes to one idea, like to not really be fixed on it, on something, either being just this way or that, to letting ideas flow, to letting, again, creativity kind of chart out its own path. So for example, with um, murals, which I had no idea what I was doing, I was told to go climb a scaffold which was like 30 feet high, and there were no the safety gear wasn't in place yet, but
Oh, okay.
it was just like instinctively going. Like I felt like a child or a monkey who was just kind of doing this because I wanted to go and paint a little creature on top of the scaff. But you kind of just have to have fun with the process and go in even as a clean slate and learn on the go. Like, I think something for me, and this is a question that even I tend to ask a lot of people and creatives in general, is the whole nature versus nurture argument. um
Mm-hmm.
like, in my drawings, the I don't really have a sense of proportion. I don't understand highlights and shadows and the correctness of things. But I've,
Mm-hmm.
again, like, just embraced that to be my style. And I guess it works, because now if someone sees a Rodoodle's work, they know that it is probably mine. Or, like, I think my biggest compliment has been my mother saying, and now she's on Instagram because I have inspired her to do that. I don't know if I'm happy about it, but she, like, my mom gave me this compliment that I know an Alipore post on my feed when I see it. So even just,
Mm.
ideas like that, like, I like the idea of things brewing, whether it comes to ideas or um, just letting something grow in its own time. Like, you can have a general sense of direction, but at
Mm-hmm.
least I'm very driven by awe and curiosity. So to not, again, like, to not take things too seriously just opens up that space for more wholesomeness to come in. Like, I don't know if any of that was helpful though.
No, I really like that answer. And I think, I completely agree. And that's so true. I'm just so happy that we got to have this conversation. And it's been so wonderful to hear you just talk about your journey. I know you've spoken about the Alipore Post before and a lot of other places, but I'm just so happy that we got to have this conversation today. So thank you so much for being here, Rohini. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Likewise, I really enjoyed your questions, and I think it's gotten me thinking also about a lot of these things that we've discussed. Thanks.
So that was my conversation with Rohini Kejriwal. I really enjoyed recording this episode, and it was a really wholesome conversation. Closing this episode with a poem written and narrated by Rohini. I hope you enjoyed the show, and I'll see you next week with a new guest and a new chronicle to share. Talk soon!
So it was really hard to pick which piece of my writing or poem I could share with you today, but I have decided to go with a piece I call Advice. And this was a poem that I wrote during the pandemic. It still sometimes feels unreal that we all collectively went through that and that we've actually come out okay, by and large. Uh, so, yeah, this is Advice. These aren't ordinary times. Stop pretending like they are. Don't let your inbox get to 99% full. Optimize storage. Find things that spark joy. Let go of everything that doesn't. Stay home. There are warriors wearing masks, saving lives in hospital wards while you worry over the choice of pasta sauce. Call home. Life is fragile. Time is fleeting. And there aren't enough I love yous you can say before the curtain falls. Think less. Love more. Be kind. Be kind. Be kind.